Hi, my name is Michael Whitaker. This is 6 of 21 photo posts that I'm doing for LinkedIn. I'm also posting them on Facebook. This is the video that goes along with post number 6. The subject of this post is keeping an open mind. The photograph that we'll be using for this particular post is Focados in Lisboa. Lisboa is the name of the city in Portugal that we call Lisbon. And I'll explain what Focados are later. I'll begin by discussing Richard T. Hurst, the late Richard T. Hurst. He died in 2014. He was my photography teacher and my photography mentor, as well as my very good friend. Rich understood my background, and he understood that I wanted to be a social documentary photographer. One day, Rich made the suggestion that I should create a documentary project focusing on a topic that was unacceptable to me. I thought that sounded strange, but I agreed to listen to Rich and see what he's suggesting. Rich knew my background. My background specific to this particular post is that after my undergraduate work, in undergraduate I had a double major in psychology and biology, and I went immediately into graduate school in biology. I was specializing in animal behavior. I specifically was studying ethology, which is the study of animal behavior in natural environments. On top of that piece of background information, Rich also knew that I had been a vegetarian for many years. The primary reason for being a vegetarian was for health reasons, but also because of my background in biology and animal behavior. Excuse me. I just had a problem with eating meat. So Rich took my biology background and my vegetarian background and said, why don't you do a documentary project on bullfighting? My initial response was absolutely not. I didn't approve of bullfighting. I wasn't about to spend a lot of time and money capturing photographs of bullfighting, so I just said no. Rich explained this didn't happen all in one day. Over several days, Rich and I talked. He explained what he was trying to accomplish by having me do this project. So eventually, I decided Rich is typically always right, so I would do this project and see to what extent it benefited me. When I started this project, I mostly did Spanish bullfights. The Spanish have a very specific type of bullfight that I'll describe in another post. So mostly I did Spanish bullfights. However, I was in Portugal to go photograph sperm whale with my friend Amos Nakum. So I decided to spend some time in Portugal photographing Portuguese bullfights. I had been told about them. I was told they existed, and I knew they were pretty different than Spanish bullfights. So I thought I have to go to Lisboa to catch a flight to the Azores, so I'll stay some extra days and photograph some Portuguese bullfights. The main difference in Portuguese and Spanish bullfights is the bull is not killed in the ring. There's also one of the most fascinating parts of Portuguese bullfights is a whole segment that happens on horseback, and it's just absolutely fascinating. The thing that strikes me as the most different is represented in this photograph. The Focados, and I hope I'm saying that right if anyone from Portugal is listening, the Forcados is a team of 8 men. that work together for the specific purpose of stopping the charging bull in its tracks. When this part of the bullfight happens, the bull has already been through a lot of stuff. You can see it has barbs in its back that it's bleeding. But the bull is not at full capacity when it gets to this fight, this part of the fight. But the bull still has huge amount of strength and energy. So these 8 men go out there, they line up in a single file, and there's a guy in the front, the very first person, who's called the face catcher. And the name is exactly what it means. He's going to catch the face of the bull and the horns, which are covered, in his chest and stomach. The bull's going to charge and hit him right in the face and stomach. So these 8 guys line up. The face catcher at the front of the line is doing all kinds of stuff, yelling and saying things to make the bull charge. And I saw 24 Portuguese fights. The bull never failed to charge. When the bull charges, it literally catapults itself at this single file line of 8 people. The face catcher catches the bull in his head and chest, and at that point, everybody else jumps in to try to get the bull to come to a complete stop. The 8th guy that you can see over here in the back of the photo with the grimace on his face, his job is to hold on to the bull's tail. These other 7 guys, and you have to look to find all 7, but these 7 guys are all there, and this guy's in the back holding on the tail. If they get the bull to stop, or if they don't get the bull to stop, the guy in the back holds on to the tail, and the bull pulls him around literally like a water skier behind a boat until the guy holding onto the tail is in a safe place to let go and run jump out of the arena. So you can look at the photo and you can see different people in different places. The face catcher is this one down here in the bottom. This guy was second in line. He's lost his shoe. I mean, there's a lot of impact. The bull knocked this man out of his shoe. And then all these other guys are somehow trying to hold on to get the bull to stop. I do not recall if the bull stopped in this particular fight or not. I do remember this little guy being pulled around like a skier behind the ski boat, but I do not recall if it stopped or not. I mean, this is absolutely an astounding thing to watch. And if you see close-up photographs of the Forcados' faces, they're all bruised and scratched and bleeding, and it's just an amazing. There's a special exhibit, or was a special exhibit at one point, focusing just on these guys, and the portraits of them had scratches and cuts all over their face. So it's not an easy thing to do. This photo was captured literally seconds, 2 or 3 seconds after the bull has hit the face catcher. So I've got literally the first 5 to 10 seconds of action here in this photo. It's really a remarkable thing. I photographed 114 Spanish fights and 24 Portuguese fights. Typically, there are 6 fights per day. So in Spain, I went to the absolute Super Bowl of bullfighting, which is in Madrid, and I went there several times. I don't remember the exact count. But I deliberately went out to the smaller towns in Spain and photographed in the smaller arenas. For no other reason, I was able to get up very close to the action and didn't have to take a lot of long shots like I did in Madrid. I didn't have enough clout in Madrid to get to this area that you can see. There's a fence here around most bull rings, and there's people behind that. I didn't have enough status in Madrid to get behind that. So I went to smaller bull rings to photograph so I could get closer. I was very close here, but I was not still behind this wall. I learned that Rich was right through this 100 and Well, it was 114 total, 90 in Spain and 24 in Portugal. Through these 114 fights, I learned that Rich was right. I did not want to do this project because of my personal biases against the way the animals were treated, hypothetically, an animal rights person. And I just didn't like the idea of the fights. But when you go to, 15 and 4, I went to actually 19 days of bullfights to see the 114 fights. And I stand around and I talk to people. And it gave me a whole different perspective. I'm still not a fan of bullfights, and I probably won't go to another. But I was in a little town called Torremolinos in Spain. And after it was over, this little old man, significantly shorter than I was, came over and said, "Are you German?" For whatever reason, people keep asking me if I'm German. And I said, "No, I'm an American." And he said, "I'm very surprised. Americans don't like bullfights." And I said, "That's right. The bullfighting has a very bad image for most Americans." And I said to him, "What would you say to Americans to convince them that the tradition behind these bullfights is a good thing?" His first remark was, "I wouldn't say anything to Americans because they don't listen to anyone." I said, "Okay, let's pretend Americans would listen. What would you say to Americans?" And he sort of put his hand on his chin and looked up and looked around. He said, "I would say to Americans, in Spain, we kill bulls. In America, you kill each other." Wasn't much of a comeback for that. He was right. I'm not saying bullfighting is right. This project was not intended to make or glamorize bullfighting. It was to understand the process. I have a lot of photographs of bullfights. I put together a basic project, shopped it around to galleries in the U.S. 0 galleries were interested in this project, so I never really did anything with it. I spoke with somebody in Madrid once about it, and they said there's a lot of bullfight books. But they said maybe wait a few years. There won't be so many books. Maybe you'll have a chance to publish these photos in a book. So maybe I'll do that someday. I really don't know what else to say but to give you one more point of my background about keeping an open mind. From 1977 to 1980, I directed a national research project that had 3 very specific questions about treating juvenile delinquents. I was one of 16 projects. Out of the 16 projects, we were the only project that completely finished the research. There was another project that did part of it. Most of the sites didn't do any of the research because most of them had a bias to one of the 3 ways of interacting with juvenile delinquents or responding to juvenile delinquency. When I testified before Congress later on about this project, somebody asked me, "Why did you go through with the project? Why did you do the research that most other people didn't do?" And I said very sincerely and very honestly, because I wanted to know the answer to the question, which was the more appropriate way of responding to juvenile delinquency. That was my attitude about this project and about all of my documentary projects. I really want to create a project that helps people understand the subject, the topic of my project. Therefore, I try to leave my personal biases behind when I shoot a project. I don't want to show the world a project based on my personal bias. I want to show the world a project based on the understanding I have as a result of creating that project. So that's the purpose behind my projects. That's what goes on in my head while I'm shooting a documentary project. That's all I can say. At least that's my notes say that's all I'm going to say. As always, I appreciate you listening to what I have to say. I appreciate your interest in the stories behind the photographs that I capture, either for my fine art or documentary projects. Next time it's number 7. That'll be done in a couple of days, and I'll see you then. Thank you very much.